We know these verses so well that we can probably say them in our sleep. Indeed, we say these words together Sunday in and Sunday out. All three of the synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, include them in some form, though the three writers say them a bit differently. What is interesting is where Mark places this passage. It is the fourth of a series of 4 questions the religious leaders asked Jesus to challenge his authority. But this time, the tone of the question seems a bit different. Why is that? Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Friday, February 17th, 2023. Today's daily lectionary reading from the Gospel of Mark covers a brief episode that neatly summarizes the Christian life. The fact that it comes as a response to a potentially hostile questioner makes it all the more remarkable. As I read this passage, you'll probably pick up some subtle differences from the version we say in worship each week, the version from Matthew's Gospel. Here's Mark's version. One of the scribes came near and heard them disputing with one another, and seeing that he answered them well, he asked him, "Which commandment is the first of all?" Jesus answered, "The first is, 'Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these.' Then the scribe said to him, 'You are right, teacher. You have truly said that he is one, and besides him there is no other, and to love him with all the heart and with all the understanding and with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself. This is much more important than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices.' When Jesus saw that he answered wisely, he said to them, 'You are not far from the kingdom of God.' After that, no one dared to ask him any question. As I mentioned, this is the 4th time someone from among the religious leaders in Jerusalem have asked Jesus a question. The first time was the day after Jesus came riding into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday and cleansed the temple. The first question was a direct and hostile challenge. On whose authority are you doing these things? The second question was couched in more polite terms, but was also a setup to attempt to entrap him. It was the question of whether it was legal to pay taxes to Caesar. The third question was a bit snarky, as we might say today. If a woman has married 7 brothers but no children have been produced, whose wife is she in the resurrection? This 4th question, however, feels a bit different. Instead of a question posed by a group of religious leaders, this one is posed by just one man, a scribe. The way Mark describes the encounter, there is no evident hostility. It could be that the scribe has been impressed by the way Jesus has answered the other questions posed to him. Still, it may have been an attempt to suss out whether Jesus really knew his stuff. Which commandment is the first of all? In the Old Testament, there are a lot of commandments. Jewish tradition holds that there are some 613 commandments in all. Moreover, there are several other important commandments that Jesus could have quoted. You shall have no other gods before me. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. But Jesus chooses 2, one from Deuteronomy and one from Leviticus. The commandment from Deuteronomy is foundational in Jewish life. Unlike Matthew and Luke, Mark has Jesus quote the whole commandment, called the Shema, after the first word of it in Hebrew, the command to hear. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength." The other commandment, to love one's neighbor as oneself, is more obscure. It comes from Leviticus 19:18, which says, "You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against any of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." Nevertheless, in spite of the fact that it is a more obscure commandment, Jesus lifts it up, giving it near equal status with the command to love God. Now, even if the scribe's question is not hostile, Mark's placement of it at the end of a section of hostile questions neatly underlines the problem with which the religious authorities in Jerusalem faced. Their first question was one of authority. They were clearly more concerned with any hint that Jesus had usurped their authority than they were anything else. Now, in answering the scribe's final question, Jesus demonstrates that true religion is not concerned with authority, but with love. Maintaining the trappings of one's own authority betrays one's concern with oneself. Love, on the other hand, isn't about authority at all. Mark makes sure to show us the stark contrast between the false religion and its concern for authority and true religion with its concern for love. It's a lesson we could all learn from today. Tomorrow, we conclude our stroll through the Gospel of Mark with one more stark contrast. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.